Hey, what's up everybody? It's Sergeant Mad Max here with another video going over the 5 things that I wish I knew prior to joining the Army. Real quick, if you like these videos, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. It helps me out so much and I really like your feedback, so please leave some comments. If you have any questions, I'll be sure to get to them. The military can be a great place to garner a lot of experience, and if you're trying to do a short stint of 3 to 5 years or you're trying to do that 20-year career, they have a lot in store for you. Is it really as simple as joining the military and getting out of it what you truly want? Or is there more to it than that? But overall, we're going to be going over the things that I wish I knew prior to joining the military. So I've got my notes up. I'm going to be looking over at those and just things that I want to make sure that I'm staying on topic as I go through this video. So the first one I want to talk about is stop talking and listen. So when I was younger, I joined at 24 years old. I tried to talk to veterans that had left the service and just to kind of get their experience, or even people that were still currently serving and get their experience and understand, like, hey, what is it that they are doing nowadays? Why did they get out? Why did they want to stay in? And just kind of pick their brain and see what's going on with that. I wanted to know what it was like and understand why they were saying things like, oh, I wouldn't do it again, but I'm glad I did it. Like, what does that mean? As a civilian, it's hard to understand those things. I had a really cocky attitude about it, though. I held these things internally. I didn't outwardly show this cockiness, but when I would go and have these conversations with people and these veterans, they would give me these things or these little tidbits of things that really sucked that they had to deal with. And I thought, you know, that was their experience. I'm going to have a totally different experience. Don't even need to worry about that. You know, it's all me. I'm going to be completely fine, right? However, a lot of the things that they said would happen ended up happening to me. And I think that's really, really important to understand, that don't take what they have to say to heart, but understand that it's really important to at least keep that in the back of your mind and understand that it is a possibility, because you are talking to people who have actually lived and served and done those things that you are going to try and do, or you're going to do in a different capacity. Obviously, the military changes over time, but you're still going to have very similar experiences. And I can say without a shadow of a doubt, a lot of the things that the veterans were telling me and that my friends had told me that were in did end up happening to me. Take what they have to say, put it in the back of your mind, but don't take it to heart. Number 2, you're going to deal with a lot of BS. Depending on the route, enlisted, warrant, officer, you will still deal with a good amount of BS. Doesn't matter what you do. There's a lot of junior enlisted that will look at the officership and say they have to deal with so much less BS. But as an officer, you're dealing with a lot of different BS. You're doing a lot more meetings, a lot more management, a lot less doing with your hands, and a lot more overseeing, which can also have its own myriad of things that you have to deal with that I won't necessarily understand what the junior enlisted have to go through either. Now, I went through basic training, and I had to deal with some of the things and understand at least what the initial training that they have to go through is like, but I don't deal with what the soldier does on a daily basis like they do, as much as they don't really see what I have to do. We only see a snippet of what they're doing typically on a daily basis, where we don't understand fully each other's jobs. Does that make sense? I hope it does. One of the things that you're going to see as well is that there's going to be leaders that are being promoted because of A, B, and C. One of the things that you're going to find is that a lot of people get out after they do their 3 to 5 year stint. There's a lot of great soldiers that should stay in a sense that they're great leaders and that they would make great NCOs, or they would make great officers, but they end up getting out before that ends up happening. And there's some soldiers, not all, again, there's extenuating circumstances, there's things that happen, everybody's route and path is different. But because of retention being very low, it's hard to keep people in right now. And they need a new leadership to come in and take over some of these roles that NCOs are, leaving. You have leaders that are being promoted that don't necessarily people think shouldn't be promoted. And what makes that difficult is that you then have a quote unquote toxic leadership, is a big buzzword that people like to throw out there. That you have a toxic leader that's above you that you don't think, or maybe they shouldn't have been promoted, but out of necessity for needing somebody in that grade or in that position, they got promoted or they got pushed into that position, can make things very, very challenging as a soldier underneath that leadership. It's going to vary from unit. It's going to vary from duty station. There's people that always say, don't judge the Army based off of your first duty location and duty station, which I can understand, but just keep that in mind, that things will be different from battalion, platoon, squad, team, and even the individual level. Last thing I'll say on this is that there's no guarantee that you're going to run into toxic leaders, but you will hear about it all the time from other soldiers. And I promise, if you stay in within that 20-year stint, or even it may be your first duty station, you will run into some toxic leaders. Unfortunately, it's just the way the way it goes. Number 3, do not overtrain. And I cannot stress this enough before you leave for basic training or any initial entry training that you plan on doing. Overtraining in the civilian world prior to transitioning into the military training, especially if you're leaving for basic training soon, it's a really bad idea. If you're pushing yourself and you feel like it doesn't feel right, it's probably not good. Now, there is a big difference that you need to understand here, and there's a difference between in pain and being injured. If you're in pain, most people are in pain when they're working out. If they're really pushing themselves, they're probably feeling some type of pain. But if you are injured and there's something that feels, mechanically, structurally weakened, or something is currently feeling not right, you need to speak with a physician. I'm not a doctor. I'm just basing this off of my experience. For example, I blew out my groin prior to joining because I was training so hard. I was training 7 days a week with no off days. It was brutal. And I thought to myself, I'm doing this 24/7, 365, gotta keep pushing. I didn't think of it as that 365, 24/7 can be me reading into doctrine or making sure that I'm memorizing the Soldier's Creed prior to leaving for basic training, or understanding what is expected of me at OCS. Things like that would have been better use of my time rather than pushing myself every single day in the gym and ultimately blowing out my entire groin. Now, I did get to rehab it, and I ended up going back and being able to ship out for basic training with no issues. But that was the problem, is that I didn't recognize that I was overtraining prior to leaving. And it's really important that you find that wiggle room, you find a plan that works for you, and consult a physician or some type of trainer to really help you prep yourself prior to leaving. One thing I want you to think about is this. When you get to training, if you are injured at training, they will hold you there until you are healthy enough to continue training, or if it's bad enough, they'll medically discharge you. You don't want to go in injured and push through an injury the entire time you're there and then set yourself up for failure. You want to set yourself up for success throughout your entirety of your time in the military. So the military is what you make of it. What I mean by this is, if you want to get tabbed, meaning you want to go to airborne school, you want to go to Ranger, Air Assault, whatever it is you want to do, you need to talk to your leadership and get on their mind and get on their radar early. Because the sooner you do that, the better they understand your intentions, what you want to do, what your aspirations are. They're going to help motivate you to get to that point, or they're going to help you figure out a way to get you to that point. Any good leader out there is going to help you get to where you want to be. And I promise you that. It's just sometimes there are things that are out of their control. Budget is a big one. We don't have the budget to send people here. That's fine. Then work on yourself until there is an opportunity to go. There's a lot of people that are going to tell you, it's too hard to do this, or it's too hard to do that, or it takes effort. That is the big thing. You want it enough, you will go and you will get it. And that is the truth. Just make sure that you do it, and that is what you truly want to do, because if you really want it and you go after it, it's going to be too easy for you to get it. If you're doing it just because other people are doing it, or you're doing it because you think, I think it would be cool to have a tab on me, it's going to be a lot harder for you to make it through those trainings rather than feeling like you have a real reason of why you want it to happen. Does that make sense? Let me know in the comments below if this is making sense or not. Now, this last point builds off of this previous point, which is, it's what you make of it. Misery loves company. So for those of you that don't really know what misery loves company is, it's basically breaks down to this. The environment you are in and those you are surrounded by feed off of each other's energy, mentality, and motivation. So if your section complains all the time and there's low energy and there's low motivation, then you can argue that this would be a misery loves company situation, because your section is miserable, and the more that you feed off of it, the more it will occur. And I often saw this happen in training and within my section, where there would be a lot of people would complain, and they would feel like, these people like to complain here, or it's almost a norm that we complain here, versus if you're in a unit or a section or a team, whatever it is that you're in, and no one is really complaining, everyone's really highly motivated, everyone's pushing each other to want to be successful and be better. It's a very different experience where you're able to kind of build each other up, and it's almost like that love that you have there. It's the loves company. So whatever that first word, take out misery, put whatever word you want in there, that will make or break your unit and your squad and your team, whatever it is. It's really important that you understand that this is also dependent on your duty location, dependent on your unit, but you could be the change to really make that a lot better for your situation. Now, one of the things that can be very frustrating that people will deal with as far as this like misery loves company thing goes, and kind of feeding into what you make of it. If you excel and you're very competent and you're high speed at something, you will probably get picked to continuously do that thing over and over again, or you did really good on one assignment, they're going to send you to another assignment because you did well and they know that you will continue to do well. However, This can really burn people out very quickly, and it can be very frustrating as somebody who is looking over at the person who's not doing nearly as much, and they are the same grade, so they're getting paid the exact same as you, but you're doing way more work. Those things long-term usually pay off if the unit is investing in you, and they're going to send you maybe to those schools and things like that. They usually will show you some appreciation, hopefully. If you have good leadership, I think that they should. Now, the problem is sometimes you don't have that recognition that soldiers should get, and what ends up happening is they feel like they're being used, abused, and at that point, it's easier for them to just decide, I want to get out because I'm not feeling like my work is being valued at this location. And it's no different than the civilian world. If you're working way more hours on some type of project and you're being paid the same thing as somebody with you and you're not being recognized for it, you could take your work somewhere else. It's very similar. Because of that burnout and because of that comparison to yourself to that soldier that's next to you, it makes it incredibly, incredibly challenging as an individual to want to push yourself even further. And I think that's where we start to see this misery loves company kind of continue on, where you have people that maybe had these career aspirations or had these aspirations to go and do really cool things that the military has to offer, and they just sell themselves short because they don't want to push themselves further than they have to because they don't see a point in doing so. And so that's a really hard thing when an entire unit, it feels that way and is telling you, as maybe a younger enlisted or a younger officer that's in a position of people who are higher up than you, who have more experience, you're going to take what they have to say and run with it because you're still new and you're still learning. It just comes with time and understanding that it's important that you build up those around you. You don't try and take the people down with you. You're always building them up. You're always working to make them better, because if you make them better, it's going to make your entire unit better, and then it is going to help you in the long run as well. So ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it was a little short. It's just some things that I noticed in my time and kind of reflecting on my time in the military. And I hope that if you have any questions, please leave them below, like and subscribe, and we'll see you all in the next video.
It's talk time.